It's because we have an opening of our new faculty.
Just a moment.
We will now assist the communication of Martin Land, Vice Head of Aalborg University Business School, Associate Professor, Entrepreneur, Executive and Business Design Expert, experienced entrepreneur and executive, with a combined academic, pragmatic and creative profile that believes in organizing genius and creativity with methods and structure. His educational background is a postgraduate degree in business, with specialization in organizational and business strategy, and a PhD in business models.
You can start.
Okay, thank you, and hi everyone. I hope you can hear me, or else let me know. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. So I've been, as the presentation said, I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life until one day I had a business partner. It's the one you can see the arm on this slide from my business partner. But one day we sort of had a discussion on what the future of our company was, and we had a quite successful company in many aspects. But you know, the start of my academic journey, understanding project work, understanding how universities work and how research work, was the starting point that ended out this night in discussion where my colleague said, you know, as being an entrepreneur, my mom simply doesn't understand what we're doing. And of course, it was really complicated sometimes because you were following leads, you were following all the potentials and new ideas that you set off to. So we decided on getting a real job, and we spent a full weekend discussing what a real job would be. And my friend ended up working for Ministry of Data Science, and he's doing that still 20 years later. And I said, okay, I want to do a PhD, and you could discuss if that's a real job. But anyway, I ended up at university completing my degree. But this was a really, really fun change for me because it sort of, I knew I was an entrepreneur, but going into university work was different, of course. But what was really lucky was that I started out with a project where we got almost 13 million euros in funding, creating a network-based project with 100 companies included. So it ended out that we had to give back a little bit of the money, but this was my starting point, figuring out how funding and projects work at a university, and at the same time combining that with research and understanding, you know, developing your academic career. So the project was called International Center for Innovation, and the whole idea was to create a regional project where we had these 100 companies that were supposed to make 10 networks, where they created a new global business model. And we had no idea research-wise, because in the year 2000, we didn't know much about business models. We knew it was, you know, it was a concept that's been around academically for since the late 80s, where especially the accounting was looking into it. But as a development tool, or as a strategy tool or innovation tool, it was something really new that was put a huge focus on, because we saw the IT, the IT bubble getting blown up with a lot of companies that got $1 trillion billion in funding, but there was no business model. And this was really interesting because it started challenging the way that we saw business models. So we were granted this huge funding scheme for trying to figure out how to leverage business models and how to structure business models, how to build business models. And one of the big work packages was the ICI lab, which was about facilitating business model innovation and creating an innovation lab. And then we had to have an international presence. So we created 3 hubs, one in San Francisco, one in Shanghai, and one in Munich to test the international part of the project. So what we learned from the start and what sort of surprised us was that when including companies in projects, and many of you tried this, but when including companies in projects, it can be hard. You need to have a strong network where they trust you, or you need to have a convincing sales argument like anything else. And when you do something new, something that might not have been done before, and so on, it can be hard to get the sales arguments and at least find 100 companies to participate. So one of my first ideas, and maybe it was an entrepreneurial approach, but I was just, how do we identify companies that are growing? How do we identify companies that are risk willing? How do we identify companies that have a new mindset? So I actually challenged an accounting firm, one of the bigger one in the region, insurance company, to get their salespeople to identify customers that they would say were growing. As the insurance company, it was quite easy because you could get data who's buying bigger and bigger insurance policies every year, and this led us to have a list of companies, and then we started talking to them and visiting them, figuring out what the potentials they had and what ideas, and within half a year we had 100 companies that were included in the project. But what surprised us a lot was that everyone expected it to be companies that had problems in technology, in internet issues, because it was in the millennium years. So what we figured out was a lot of traditional companies, production companies, had just as big issues figuring out what the future business model should be like. So we spent a lot of hours at least visiting these companies, and it ended out us having some projects that wasn't all about technology. There was always an element of technology in them, but it was more about the business model. And I think one of the greater, and I will show you a short example of what we did with the company later on, but one of the greater examples was the seafood network we created. And what I really loved about that network was when we visited the company the first time, it was actually really experienced investors that invested in this wholesale company selling fish for restaurants and supermarkets and so on. And these guys said, we've been struggling, in a business where you can only compete on price and you can't invent a new fish. So, if you guys can help us invent the business model, that seems really nice. And we started up the project with these guys. So it was some really interesting things. As you can see here, we had 10 projects, including the 100 companies that we divided in different groups and so on. And some companies actually attended the different networks. So we had Provital, which was a water filtration system. We had Eye in the Sky, which was a drone company. I'll show a little bit about that case later on and some examples on how we work with these guys. ViewWorld, it was about reporting data, and it was actually run by NGOs, so it wasn't a commercial company, but it was a company that tried to figure out how do NGOs change their business model, which was just as interesting as many of the other projects. Then we had the seafood, as I say, I will tell you a little bit about later. We had a company about HR managing that was really interesting as well. We had instant marketing, it was very technology oriented. And then we had mobile tracking, an amazing project where you could track people we did a huge live scale test in the city of Aalborg, where I'm from. And we tested the whole city center where using Bluetooth, cellular technology. We had technology that could track how people were moving around. And then if you did instant marketing with screens, for example, with LCD screens, would you actually be able to change the behavior of the people real time? And this was an amazing project. We looked into sustainable construction, we had logistics, and we had the space crater network, which was just the most amazing name. It wasn't as exotic as it looks like, but the whole idea was saying square meters in the large cities around the world is getting more and more expensive. How can you actually change so you don't look at a house in square meters, but look at the cubic meters? So you leverage the space even more. And they created a network-based platform where they shared production facilities, 7 or 8 companies between, and then you could do user innovations where you voted what products should be developed and stuff like that. It never became a commercial viable product business model, but it was a really, really interesting project. So as you see, it surprised us how we could set up these different networks. So based on this, we created the lab, and we started in 2009, and this is where I think getting EU funding, getting projects really, really, shows the value, because based on a project, we created a research group in reality. We started it in 2009. During the years, I think this number that's typical of a professor not correcting the slides, but just reusing them. But I think the number is more like 20 million in external funding now in euros. We cross-disciplinary. We work across the different faculties we have here at the university in Aalborg. And we, as you can see, we did a lot of things based on this project. So we actually have a real life research group now. And other than that, we actually created the journal Business Model, which is the most established journal in the area. We have a 10-year anniversary this year with more than 1,000 articles that was published since the start. We created different other activities like the Business Model Conference and so on. The Business Model Conference, here you see Upineur, you guys who know the Business Model Canvas probably heard about Upineur, who was the co-author of the Business Model Generation book together with Alexander Osterwalder. And I think what we succeeded in doing with this project was that we actually joined all the researchers, at least the top 10, top 20 researchers in this field. And when a guy like you shows up, I guess that if we had to pay for it, it would probably be 20,000 euros for a keynote. But he showed up and he actually, reached out and said thank you to me for collecting or for merging or creating the space for researchers. So it was really, really interesting that a project could, start start its own life after the project ended. Here we are, and the first one was in Venice, the second one was in Florence, the next one was in New York, and we just had one in France, in Lille, and we had the fifth one in Copenhagen, Denmark, and next year it's in Forli. So it's a very international impact we had on as a result of this project. So one of the things that I just wanted, give you a little bit of inspiration of unfortunately we're a little bit delayed, and I have to be at the opening hour of the official opening of a new faculty in 10 minutes, but I'll just give you a little bit of insights on business models before I'll show you the examples so you know what I'm talking about. So what we saw when we started up the project, and this is just to give you the background of the understanding of what we did, we sort of agreed that there was a lot of different innovation types, and you probably know a little bit as about some of them. But what we saw was that business model innovation really was a much needed thing. And what we saw after the project and in the recent year is that it's becoming a central part of every European Horizon project. You have to do exploitation. You have to figure out how it can create viable business models, and so on, so on, so on. And what it just confirmed the interesting parts about our research, because we sort of always joke about when we have really dedicated technology heavy projects, saying at least you recognize that the business model is the most important thing in the world, because if you don't have a business model connected to anything, there will never be a viable success in it. So what is a business model when I'm talking about this? And I'll do this extremely rapidly. I could talk about this for hours, and I really enjoy talking about it. So I hope I'll just give you the short insights on what we figured out. We figured out that a lot of researchers are talking about business models as, the value chain, the network partners, and we just, here's Porter's generic value chain. This is not a business model in itself. Some would say it's the organization and the things going on in the organization, the output. It's not a business model. What was interesting is that when we started up the ideas for the project, the business model would be considered a way to make money and sustain profit stream over time. And this was probably a really valid statement on what a business model was in the year 2000. But what we found was that when Alexander Osterwalder said that it's a conceptual tool and it has something to do with the value and so on, it started making sense. And we actually really early on started collecting definitions of business models. I just took a little bit out of the list. I think we have a list of 83 different definitions before we gave up. And every time I have a new PhD student that starts up and I look at the proposal, and there's a chapter saying, I want to define the business model, I just say, no, don't go that direction. We tried that for years and we still didn't succeed. So please don't rely on defining something that's so complex. So we entered a area that's really complicated, but again, interesting. So just to be a little bit professor-like, then there was a study done in 2011 where 37% of all papers discussing business models didn't even define the term business model. So it's like a term that you can just use, but without apparently considering what it is. And that's something that has changed luckily. So normally my normal slide would be saying it's like touching an elephant. Here you have 6 blind guys touching an elephant, seeing completely different things. And when you have the complexity in that degree, then it really, really changes the way as a researcher on how you include the companies. So we had a huge task in front of us because we were standing with a topic that was this complex, but still really important, and you had company owners understanding completely different things on how to do it, and you had to collect them in creating the same thing. So it was a really, really interesting starting point for a project that became really successful. And you probably know the business model generation book that we used a lot. So just in order to catch up on time, I'll just do a few skips on the next slides because I had a lot I want to go in. Today we built a business model suite. I'll just do this very briefly, but we built a piece of software where companies can go in and we can assess the business model. We can give them, a description on the business model, and you can get tools for changing the business model and a dashboard. But let's get to the important part. The important part in this presentation is how we work with the companies and how we actually gain value both for the participants and for the companies. This is a drone. This is 20 years old, the picture, and at that time it was really, really high end. Extremely new thinking, the newest technology, everything. So the project started really interesting with this slide, and this is the original slide that I wrote. I remember to enter the project, you would get funding around roughly maybe 200,000 euros for the companies and the staff seed funding for the project. And then you had to do a presentation for board of directors that would consider the idea, and then they would approve the project fairly fast. You actually get, we would test a few things. There was some legal stuff, but you would get onboarded the project within a week or so. So we had a really fast process for getting the companies on board. And this presentation showed a company, or at least a network of companies. And this was the first network-based company that we sort of saw in the project, because there were 5 companies, at least main participants, that wanted to create a new product together. There was an NGO, the Danish Church Aid, I think it was, that said, we have a problem. Our problem is that when we have a situation in Africa, we don't have valid maps, we don't have valid data on how to, we can't plan anything. So we need data, real-time data on what's going on. So the challenge was to build a suitcase that you could bring as carry-on luggage in an airplane and bring it to a disaster zone everywhere in the world. And you should be able to operate it with no special training. Like, of course, you should have some training, but no, not like 2 weeks of training, maybe 1 day of training. That should be sufficient. So we had to have an intelligent product that could solve these things, and we had to have some knowledge about all the different areas. So these 5 companies knew a little bit of everything. Somebody knew some bit about radio technology, other software, something about plastic and avionics and stuff like that. But building a company like this is costly. As an entrepreneur, I would just look at all of the gadgets that they plan to do and think this is a huge expense to figure out how to make a business from this. And so what we did was in the project, we followed these guys, and the starting point, they made all sorts of plans for what the product should do, and they as you can see, they were really innovative in what they were thinking. You could scan areas and you could count how many people. There were so many different ideas on how the product could succeed. And 1 year later, they had a successful product innovation. They had proof of concept. They had a common business model because it was a really good product at the right price. And this, maybe, I think the pricing at just, it was maybe 30 or 40,000 euros for like one unit. And at that time, it was extremely cheap compared to what was in the market. You can't compare it to the off-shelf drones today. Actually, some of them are way better in many areas. But this was a professional product at this time, military-grade product that was actually sold to the U.S. Army and other huge military operations. So they succeeded in creating the right product at the right price, at the right time, I may say. But the problem was there was no customers, because these guys aimed at the NGO market, and they gave the NGO that helped out from the start a product, and they said, thank you so much. Can you give us 20 more? No, you can pay for them, they said, because this is our business. And as you know, NGOs are often in business of helping someone, so they have to get funding. So we did a business model workshop figuring out how can this product be used in different areas. And we figured out that you could, and again, the network-based business where we as a university was the facilitator of finding the partners. We figured out if you have a chemical tank or an oil tank, you need inspections. That's often a part of the certification process. So you have to empty everything out. It costs a lot of money. You have to stop production. You have to put 2 people in the tank with the flashlights and a scaffold and everything to inspect it manually. So we figured out, okay, if we could do this with a drone, then it needed some sonar. So if there was any fluids or any liquids in the tank, it would sense it and so on. And everything the drone was able to do with small modifications But then we figured out it could be really smart if it automatically could inspect the surface. And then one of the chief engineers said, okay, we can do that, 4 guys in 4 months, then it's done. But at that time, they were running out of money because they wasn't in market. They invested all the money that they, could find in the product. And it was hard, if you don't have some sort of commercial success to get even more funding at this point of time in the stage of this business. So what we figured out, and I would say, it's a joke I normally say when a technical guy says it takes 4 guys 4 months, then you know for sure it takes 8 guys 8 months. That's sort of, at least my experience. But we tried to change the business model and be a facilitator as the university by telling a story about Apple and how Apple includes partners in their platform. Even though it's one of the most successful and powerful companies in the world today, every time they produce a new product, there will be hundreds, maybe thousands of partners creating accessories, apps that would create value for the product. And it's quite beautiful how it works. And then we told the story, we went into details, and we asked the company or the network Skywatch, could you leverage from this? And then we did a process on this. And then we actually found a partner that were able to add the sensors, and they had the technology. So we made a license model where we could add that on the drone. And then we had a project, and we had a live working, product within a few months, and everything was great. And then they changed the business model, so it enabled them to do many different things, and instead of just selling to NGOs. And here's just some of the good and the less good things the product can do. Yeah, that was one of the projects, and unfortunately I'm running out of time due to the delay, and I would really love to tell you more about the project, but I hope it was insightful on how we work with projects and how it started out, and it gives you some inspirations, and at the same time some insights. Should we just take a few minutes just for if you have a few questions, and then I just have to run a little bit faster to the other building after this? Is there any questions?
Thank you, Martin, for your excellent presentation.
I don't think I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Are you listening? Yes.
Yeah.
It was a great presentation, and recently I have also working with startups in European project of EIT, and I found that this is quite challenging because, of course, the maturity level is very different, and the engagement that we can have to provide to the companies, startups, provide enough information. That was also a challenge in your big project to rely on consistent and valuable information from the startups and from the companies involved.
So the question is, sorry, there's a little bit reverb, so it was hard to understand the last part.
The access, the question is the access to enough information, enough data, enough inputs to these startups, to these companies, and how could you solve this problem?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a really good question, and it's spot on. One of the big things we learned from this project. So there was 2 things we learned, because researchers can be a little bit rigid I remember one of my colleagues, a professor, saying, companies should just enter these projects, and we will give them back the students as a return on investment for the time that they spend on the project. But it doesn't really work that way in reality, because companies are busy. They want to make money. They have a strategy. They have sometimes shareholders and so on that they need to provide value for. So one of the things that we introduced in the project was the concept of return on investment, because and this is not about money, it's about creating value to each other. We figured out that if we as a university, as the facilitator of this project, were creating value for the participant, then they opened up for pretty much everything, and they became actually very honest about what was going on. I've been in board meetings, I've been in meetings where I was told after these meetings, you can't tell about what was going on here because we are a publicly noted company on NASDAQ, for example, and we have to do official, presentations to the market before we can disclose the things that you just were told now. So as a researcher, I was, inside the engine room, I would say, because I was able to give them a feeling of return on investment working with us. So if you want access to quality data as a research outcome of projects, I think it's a really, really important understanding that you have to give them something. And it's not about funds, it's not about knowledge, it's not about network, it's about everything. It's a mixture of them. You have to make sure that the CEO actually, prioritizes working with you, that he would pick up the phone when you call, because it gives him value. If you can come to that state in a project, it's much more valuable. But I would say, I would say that I've seen the later years, especially after COVID, businesses are getting way more focused, and it's so much harder to give them return on investment in these projects, because they're so focused on creating lean businesses with no interference. Was that a good answer to your question? Yeah. Oh, thank you for the question. It was a really good one. Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the conference. I really love to have been there, but it was a little bit hard to be at two places at the same time. I'll just end out by saying that in my younger years, I spent many trips to Portugal, and I really missed the country. It was a nice destination for me. I was in the Coimbra area a lot and worked with some guys from the university there. But thank you. Enjoy the conference and have a nice weekend when you get to that point. Now I'll go to the opening of our new faculty.
Thank you for your presence and contribution. We call to the stage Pedro André Corista from Capgemini. Pedro André Corista is an artificial intelligence engineer at Capgemini, engineering specialized in mobile network and Internet of Things, data processing and analytics. Has been working with big data technologies to address artificial intelligence initiatives such as smart CAPEX, network dimensioning and forecasting, data mobility prediction, among others.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me talk about this. Let me talk a little bit about business intelligence. My name is Pedro Corista, and I'm going to talk about one of the business cases that we implemented in one of our clients in Belgium. But before, let me introduce a little bit about Capgemini Engineering. So at Capgemini Engineering, we work worldwide, actually, and we work in all different areas. Sorry? Oh. Much better. Okay, here at Capgemini Engineering, we actually work worldwide in a lot of different fields. So we work in healthcare, we work with telco providers, we work with oil companies, and we are worldwide, and in Portugal, we are in 3 different places. So we are in Porto, we are in Fundão, and we are actually in Lisbon. And in Lisbon is usually where I work at. But I work in Lisbon, and I have the opportunity to not only work with Portuguese customers, but also with international ones. And the reason why I have these opportunities is because they usually have some sort of challenges that are mainly concerning data, analytics, and artificial intelligence, which is my area of expertise for the last 5 years. So now that I gave a little bit of information about the company and myself, let me go to the actual juice of this presentation. So we are going to talk about business. We are going to talk about analytics. We are going to talk about smart decisions, or we are going to talk about the concept that has all of this information all together, which we call business intelligence. So what is business intelligence and why we need it? Business intelligence is just the concept of actually having the data that a business produces in a normal way and use that information to generate insights that can drive the business. So it is a very broad concept, let's say. So what we'll do in here is take a step back and actually understand it a little bit better. And I will say that by the end of this presentation, if you are not already experts in business intelligence, you will be. So, as I said, the main objective is to produce values from the data. But what is this value? So how can we do this? What we do exactly is to take information that we have from business rules, and we create what we call key performance indicators, or KPIs. These KPIs are then put in some dashboards, some fancy visualizations, in a way that people that are actually commanding the business can understand them and take the smartest decisions. But we have a problem in here. And the problem is that traditional business intelligence has 2 main flaws. The first flaw is that KPIs are generated from business rules. But if we generate KPIs from business rules, what happens is that we don't know exactly if a business rule is outdated or not. I'll give you an example. If I design a KPI based on a business rule that came 10 years ago, I am not certain if that KPI is still valid today, even though that KPI is in a dashboard. So there is the need to challenge the KPIs that already exist. On the other way, we also know that business intelligence is very good predicting the present, so I can use these fancy visualizations to understand what are my best products, what are my best customers, what are my key roles in a company, but it's not so good forecasting the future. And these 2 flaws, let's call it like that, are something that you need to bear in mind and will be important in the next minutes. So it has these 2 flaws, but generally it works as a charm, let's say. Okay, onto the pointer. Okay, and traditionally, we have 5 different steps. We have 5 different steps in the business intelligence life cycle. So the first one is to collect the data. Yeah, not. Let me change the micro. This one does not work either. Yes? Okay, let's work with what we have. Does this one work? Okay, so I will use this one. Okay, guys, small problems, but we can overcome this. So basically, the first step, as I was saying, is data gathering. The second step is, after having all the information in a single source, to actually create a data model that explains which are the relations between this data, and then have kind of some queries applied to that data model, and from those queries we can then calculate the KPIs that we're talking about. We can then have this information sent to dashboards, and this is the dashboard that will allow the business analyst to actually take the smart decisions, or as we call it, the juice. So this is the traditional one, but if you remember, a few minutes ago, I told you that we have some flaws that are associated to business intelligence. But what if I told you that there is a very smart way to overcome those problems? And that smart way is to, instead of just using the normal steps that we use in business intelligence, to actually add a new one in the middle of the query creation and the dashboard creation. And this new layer, we call it business analytics. What business analytics do is to actually challenge these KPIs, test them always to see if they are outdated or not, and also to apply some enhanced AI methodology to actually forecast the future and then stop the limitation that traditional business intelligence has. We can say that business intelligence is what we use to control the present, but to transform a company and to actually adopt the correct strategy to the future, we need business analytics in our pipelines. And this is kind of the starting point for the story that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tell you a story about this Belgian telco operator where we studied the business case where they wanted to invest smartly in the network, where we implemented a framework based on their needs, and this framework is now in production, and in the next 5 years will allow them to save around 10 to 12 million euros, I think, in the next 5 years. So let me give you a little bit of context about this. Our telco operator, what he wanted to do was to actually invest in network capacity, and I will explain what is network capacity in some moments. But before, let me just explain which was the context that we faced inside the company. So we were quite everywhere, so very transversal to all of the departments. So we were connected to the data science teams, to the capacity squads, financial teams, marketing teams, etc. Because in the end, we needed the data from all of them to actually start building some value. And in the past, we had already implemented one similar project, so in fixed network. And since it was a very successful project, we had the opportunity to transpose this to the actual mobile network. The thing is that mobile network is much more difficult than is the fixed network. And I will give you here a very little crash course about the dimensions and what you need to know about capacity investments. So what you need to understand is we want to identify problems in the network because we want to invest not only in the places that have more money involved, but also in the places that have clients that have poor customer experience. The problem is this: if you are at home and you have a problem, you have lack of internet, and you call your operator, everything goes well because you are at your home and the operator can map the problem that you are having to your own router or to your own cell, whatever. The problem is that if you are using 4G network or 5G network, you are actually moving. So it's not easy to make this association to where the problem is. So this is the first concept. The second one is to understand at a technical level where is the investment made. So there are three elements that we need to bear in mind in here. So we have the cells that are basically the antennas where you connect to. These antennas usually have some sorts of joints that are pointing towards the same direction, and we call these the sectors. And the place that holds the sectors we call the sites. The sites are basically the big white sticks that you see while we go to the work. So these are basically telecom towers or sites. And these are the three dimensions that we have, but usually when we talk about investment, we talk about this investment at sector level, so considering this. So we are talking about capacity investments, but I did not yet explain what capacity is. So capacity is basically the utilization that we have in each cell. Imagine this. Every time that you are using a cell is using capacity. So there is kind of an utilization limit, and this limit goes from 0 to 100. And there is one threshold that you don't know where it is, but your provider may give you some guidelines where we'll start having some degradation. So imagine that that limit is 60%, and when people using it allow it to have 60%, then other people will be impacted, and what will happen is that they will not be able to stream, they will not be able to access web pages with a lot of speed, they will have their experience degraded. And this is important because people that have a lot of customer impact, let's say, will quit the company sooner or later. So this is why it is so important to invest at capacity level. But capacity has also some technicalities involved. And those technicalities, and I will not go in a very technical aspect, let's say, are called the spectral efficiency and the traffic. The traffic is what you download, so the amount of data that you can exchange, and the spectral efficiency is basically how fast or how well you can download the amount of data that you want. So, you know the problem. Let's talk a little bit about what you have at our disposal to actually address the problem. So we have access to information about the network itself, information about customer experience, and information about customer complaints. All this information takes a lot of needs and actually processing time, and we had to have a big platform to actually process this kind of stuff. So we had a platform, or a state-of-the-art framework, as it is called in a fancy way, that was able to actually process this in a distributed way and actually store this in a distributed way. So we know what is the problem, we know what we have to work with for the problem, we know what we have to solve the problem, so let's talk about what is the solution that we created to solve this. So I explained this in a very simplified way. So we have this concept of smart CapEx, we want to make very smart investments, but what does this mean in reality? In reality, it means that we want to find which are the areas that have poor capacity, and we want to cross these with the areas where there is more money involved. Because there is no need to actually design the investment for the zones where are problems if that problems only affect one or two people. No, we want to chase the money. And the idea actually seems simple, but in fact is not. And because it's a complicated and complex problem, we actually have to take some baby steps and divide this framework in several different black boxes, let's say. So what shall we do to actually design the framework and access what is our end goal? We first want to identify where are the users with problems. So the ones that, as I explained, have their capacity degraded. If we can identify that customers and actually identify the actual metrics that influence those customers, we are half the way through of solving our main problem. Because when we find these metrics, we can then translate them into cell level and actually create the threshold or find the threshold that we are looking for. Then, after finding where the problems are, we want to understand where is the money. And to know where is the money, we have actually to create a financial model that translates what the customer pays to anything else. So basically what the customer pays to the sites, changing this by kids. And then we can actually have this information correlated with socio-demographic factors and actually take some extra insights that can be used by another different teams. And everything that am explaining here will be demonstrated because this has been all implemented and we have here the outcomes too in this presentation. But as I was saying, so we identify the problems, we identify the money, so where shall we invest after finding this? We want to invest in the places that pass the capacity threshold, but we need to find that through the capacity threshold, and we want to invest not now, but in the future. So we don't want to invest in the network with the state that it has right now. We want to invest for the future and predict the future customer impact. And then we can actually extend this that we are doing to other technologies such as 5G or what is coming next, 5G. But the question is, how actually can we pass from this fancy framework that are just rules and words to the actual real world? Well, easy. We just divide these into initiatives and we build value by finishing each of one of these initiatives. So the first one is to find the actual capacity threshold. And in here, bear in mind that in the beginning I thought that we should actually define some of the KPIs and some of the business rules that exist. Traditionally, this threshold is a guideline that is provided by network providers. So I'm talking about Ericsson, ZTE, Nokia, etc. But it's just a guideline. So it's something that they say, okay, when I pass this threshold, I may have customer experience impact, but this has not been proven in a data-driven way. So what we started to do was to actually follow the engineering leads and create some KPIs of ourselves based on the network information, customer experience metrics, client CRM, and actually the complaints in the form of client calls and NPS, and we tested if this works. So we created an AI algorithm that was able to tell which were the most important factors. And the results were quite interesting. So what we found out is that by dimensioning the KPIs this way, we cannot find anything. Why? Because people just complain. People complain regardless of having problem. And what the algorithm told us is that the main factor for someone to complain about capacity is not having problems with capacity, is actually how old they are and how long are they with the company. So young people just complain more, and basically people that are with the company for more years just complain less. So by here we just said, okay, the strategy that the company is following right now is not correct, because they are designing their KPIs from rules that are not true. So what we did was to remove all this garbage from the equation and actually go through the actual scientific metrics. And I will not enter in technicalities here too. Basically, we were able to translate those important metrics into actually capacity threshold. But now we have another topic. So how can we now pass all this scientific information, all these analytics, all these processes that we have in here into actual something that people can understand, people from the business? Well, the answer is simple: dashboards. We continue for the next step to the next step of the business intelligence pipeline. And we tested these KPIs, we created better KPIs on top of the ones that existed. Now let's translate this to business. So what I have in here are some of the visualizations that the operation teams have right now. The first one is, for example, the limits of capacity, or the amount of average capacity that we have per month according to specific sectors. And those specific sectors can be residential sectors, sectors for holidays, etc. And we do exactly the same through city. So if we were talking about Portugal, this would be a district, let's say. The amount of problems that we have in Porto, in comparison with the ones that we have in Algarve, with the ones that we have in Lisbon, etc. And this is something that business can understand. Business can look at this and say, okay, probably I need to invest, if I were just capacity-wise investing, I need to invest in this zone, in this zone, and in this zone, because compared to the average of my country, this is worse than it should be. And these are the results of the first initiative. So let's keep adding value. The next part is the sector load forecasting. So in here too, we actually challenged again what the engineering teams were already doing. So traditionally, what they do is kind of see what is the average of the capacity values that they have, and then they just do a linear regression. So they just draw a line or an exponential, and they hope that they hit the capacity market. And what we started to do was not to discard this idea, was to actually see if it was correct or not. And in fact, it is correct in the majority of times. But there are situations where it is not. And the situations where it is not is where we have what we call seasonal sectors. A seasonal sector is something where we don't have capacity increase in the majority of the year. So imagine some place near the beach. Then everyone goes to the beach in the summer and we have a bump. Then we don't have much, or we can have another one in another time that has more holidays seasonality. And then this kind of pattern repeats over the years. So for this kind of situations, the engineering algorithm will never work. So what we did was an hybrid approach. So for the ones that work, and that we know that a linear regression works, we let it be. And for the ones that we know that cannot work, we created a dedicated AI algorithm. And what we have in here are actually the results that we have for these specific ones that had the AI algorithm. So what we have here in black is the actual normal behavior of the capacity. What we have in blue is the estimation of the engineering teams, and what we have at yellow or orange, whatever this is the result of our AI algorithm forecast. And what we see is that if I were investing using the methodology of the engineering, I actually would pay to upgrade a site or a sector that does not need any update. I would just be throwing money into a river, basically. And the same way that we are having this situation of underestimation, we are having here one of overestimation. So we can grab or can identify all the situations that we have in here for both, and in this way enhance the methodology of traditional engineering teams. And with this, what we did was to have a 20% improvement on the overall solution. So imagine that you have 20,000 sites or 20,000 sectors, you have a lot of improvement. You know that 4,000 of them are probably wrong. So Again, we have all this scientific stuff, we have all these results, etc. How do we pass this again to something that the engineering teams can understand? You guys already know this. Dashboards. So what we have in here are is basically something that the capacity teams see. So at green we have the normal behavior of the network, and these walls, or with these little dots, are what we see from their side as the forecasted values. And we see that at green we expect this to be the value and there is no danger. Then there is something yellow that we don't see in here, that is when we are approaching the capacity limits. And finally, we have the red marks that represent that by this time of the year, we will have capacity problems and then the site has to be upgraded. You cannot read this very, very well, but basically, I think that what is in here is that by April of 2023, we will actually have severe problems in this specific sector, so pretty soon it has to be upgraded. And the same way that we have these results in here, we also have for all the other stuff that we calculate to get here. So it's a complete menu, let's say, either for the business teams or for the capacity teams that actually take care of this. So how do we pass from having all these, let's say, insights into actually start making some investment? Well, we cross results. And this crossing of results will tell us where and when to invest. So what we have in here, and forget this part on the left, what we have in here is just an illustration of our success. So basically what we have on top, and pay attention that this is pretty much anonymized, and the trend will continue for the next slides, because this is real data. What we have on top is the initial proposal for the investment of 2022, so it already passed, from the capacity teams. And you see that we only have one color, that is blue. What we have on bottom is what happened after crossing our framework with the same information and comparing this with them. So we now have three colors. We have the blue ones that actually identify the places where we agree with the initial forecast of the engineering. We have zones at green that are the zones that we identify as zones that should not have capacity upgrades, so money is run away. And most important, we have these red, or I don't know what color this is, zones that actually represent the zones that were not seen or were not spotted by the engineering forecasts. And here is where the money is, and here is the money that we were losing if we were not using these forecast methods. Again, this is how we expand the capacity and how we compare to them. Let's talk about how we expand to 5G and actually to some other departments that got interest in our project. So I told you in the past, when I demonstrated which would be the conceptual aspect of the framework, that we would have a financial distribution. And this financial distribution would allow to understand where in the country is the actual value. Well, that value is represented in here. So basically, we have a map of the whole country, again, heavily anonymized. And if we have big green dots, we have a zone that has a lot of revenue associated. And if we have a zone that has very small dots, we have a zone that does not have much money involved. And what happened was that marketing teams reached us and said, guys, you kind of discovered something that we were looking for a lot of years. And we're like, well, what is that? You found the places that we should target. So what happened was this. We integrated this in these maps. So this is another type of dashboard where you have maps in the country. And we correlated this with other metrics such as urban density. So in this map on the bottom, so again, the dots, but the red ones are the value, and this light reddish color is the urban density. And if we find situations like this, where we have a very small amount of value, but we have a very high urban density, it means that we have a lot of acquisition potential in here. So these are places that the marketing teams want to know about, so that they can do some detailed and some proper marketing campaigns in here and kind of try to attract the companies or the customers in this area. So this is what we did just with our financial model, let's say. So what's not something that we were expecting to do. And we actually did what we were expecting to do, but guys, bear in mind that this is even more anonymized than it was before. Real data, you know. So what we did was to actually, we were contacted by the companies to actually take care of the 5G rollout problem, and this 5G rollout problem actually needs to be done very smartly. So we have places in the network that we need to reach, but we don't have the time to reach them all. So since we have to be smart in our investment, what we did was to actually use our financial framework and spot the places that were actually more important than the others. And we have these algorithms in production, and right now, every time that someone wants to understand which is the area where they should invest, they just reach the dashboards that we have, and they find the next ones to choose for the rollout. So in the end, let's just wrap this up about everything that we did and what is the actual outcome of the framework. So we were able to do very smart capacity investments. We were able to find capacity thresholds that are much more closer to the actual needs that we need, that exist than the ones that were provided by the telco providers. We were able to forecast the future capacity of the networks, and with this, we expect to save more than 10 million in the next 4 or 5 years. And this is how we kind of changed the approach how a company was doing its business intelligence and actually helped them transform their own futures. And that's it, guys. We now go for the Q&A.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I don't know.
Yeah, it did not work before, it won't work now.
Thank you for a very nice presentation. My question is what will be the future of this framework and if it will be used, for example, in other scenarios, other countries, other companies?
Okay, regarding the framework itself, so now we have an efficient way of addressing capacity problems, and this way is in production, so they are consuming this. But there are other aspects that can be used when we are talking about investment. For example, right now, what we are working on is actually to expand this to coverage. So a company has not only capacity problems, but also some coverage that needs to be done. So they need to address that, they need to make sure that the whole country has people around it and that all the people have access to the network. What we are trying to do is to prioritize the places where we need to increase our coverage so that in the future we reach even more clients. But of course, this is the same situation that we talked about. We have to find the areas that have enough clients to actually justify the enhancement on coverage, and this has to be done in a data-driven way. So this is kind of we are working right now. I hope to have answers. Go for it.
I have a question. How can you please explain how did you create the financial logic?
The financial model. Yeah, I can. So it has various aspects, but let's go for the easiest one of them. So imagine that you, while you have your daily routine, you actually use 2 different sectors. But you use 90% of your data in one of that sectors and only 10% in the other one. And that you actually pay 10 euros per month to the company. What we do is to actually aggregate all these following certain algorithm logic, and then we just put from then that 10 euros, 1 euro in one of the sites, 9 euros in the other side. And we do this for all the clients, we aggregate everything together, and this is maybe the simplest thing that we have in our financial model. And this kind of illustrates the rest too. Thank you. Go for it.
That you define is user defined, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rules are encoded or they are extracted automatically?
Well, the rules that we have, and I can go to the slide actually. The rules that we have. A minute, if I find it. Let's go here. It's easier. The rules that we have say like this. So the rules say, business says that if we put demographics into those KPIs, so if we kind of multiply the age divided by some number to the actual impact, we should have results. And this is something that is not random from the client, it's something that is in the literature, let's say. The problem is that what is in the literature has not been tested. So it's something that is a rule of thumb, let's call it that way. But that rule of thumb may work in some cases and in other cases not working. So what we do is like, for the developments that we did, we found these ones following the methodology that I explained, but in the future, all these KPIs have to be tested again. So what we did, and I don't have those dashboards in here, is to have other kind of dashboards that actually test the KPIs. So they allow to see if the KPIs are working or not, and if in the future they have to be replaced by another. So it's kind of a business life cycle that we are continuously enhancing according to our own dashboards. So we create the KPIs, we monitor the KPIs, and according to the result, we create new KPIs. I hope to have answered.
Thank you for your presence and insight.
Thank you.
We now call to the stage Ana Barros from P&O Innovation Portugal. Ana Barros is Senior Innovation Consultant at P&O in Portugal. Before joining P&O, Ana Barros worked 10 years as a senior researcher at INESCTEC, Institute of Systems and Computer Engineering, in the field of operations, supply chain, and technology management. Ana Barros participated in several European projects, research projects in collaboration with Carnegie Mellon University, and consultancy projects in the area of technology, strategy, and Industry 4.0. Ana Barros was the EIT Manufacturing Program Manager and a member of the founding team of the Produtec Digital Innovation Hub.
So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you to Instituto Politécnico de Castelo Branco and to Luís Farinha for the invitation. When Luís told me, oh, Anna, could you please come and talk about academia-industry collaboration, I thought, well, how can I not? So this has been pretty much my whole professional life till now. So starting in the industry, the 7 years, first in Germany, building bio-waste treatment plants, then in Portugal, working as semiconductor industry in a factory in the north of Portugal. And then after these 7 years, I was 14 years working as a researcher. So first PhD in industry, which is an instrument of academia-industry collaboration. And then working, all research projects I have worked were with a collaboration with industry. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about this. And after these 21 years, I have recently joined this year innovation consultancy company. And what I do every day is pretty much engineering and setting up academia-industry collaboration. So fantastic. I hope you have all your questions about this issue at the end of the presentation, so we can have a vivid discussion on this important topic. So, and what is P&O Consultants? P&O Consultants is an innovation consultancy company already present in 8 countries. And I'm very happy and honored to help bring P&O Innovation to Portugal in January this year. The approach we do is focusing the research, development, and industry strategy in the recent technology market and policy trends. So, and we use business intelligence and AI, as the previous speaker was talking about, to get these insights in terms of markets and in terms of policy. So then we build consortia. We, as you see, we are in 8 different countries. So we have a pretty much easy reach out to our colleagues to find consortia, to tap into the knowledge we need in the consortia for the projects, for the collaboration projects. And then we do all the process of securing the funding of the project, so of helping companies and research institutions, public organizations, finding the funding they need for their innovation. And we are quite a big group. So you can see here quite a few companies and labels, as we name them. Some more general, like P&O, that covers all sectors, and some more specific, like EGAN for the green innovation, or Topstar for life science, for example, and so on and so on. And we also have recently acquired 2 of our IT partners, so cloud selling on online marketing and also innovation engineering. And this shows P&O's strategy to have the most technological developments also applied in innovation grant business. So this is some numbers. So we are in the market for 35 years, since 1985. The company started in the Netherlands. We are now in 8 countries, and also we participate in projects. So we help create the projects, but we also participate as beneficiaries in a total value of 1 million per year. And so here is our footprint. I believe how we differentiate ourselves is right there in the first 2 columns. Basically, focus, consultancy, and domain specialists. So the consultants at P&O, most of them are very experienced in a field, a sector, so that we can understand the needs of the industry and the researchers. And as to show you that, I will show you the P&O team in Portugal, and that's the specialists you can now count here. As you can see, you have Alexandre Rodrigues in the area of transport, mobility, environment. I'm more focused on supply chain, manufacturing, technology management. Philippe Petumé, life sciences, biotechnology. Nuno Lopes, ICT, smart cities and digital transformation, and Sergio Oliveira with aerospace, energy and industry. So, of course, we cover a lot of sectors and many different expertise, but these are the ones we have been more focused on, and that's a plus for the people we work with. So, I thought about when you think about academia-industry collaboration, I thought about this matrix, important, urgent. I believe many of us use this to prioritize our tasks every day, right? We can also use to prioritize projects in companies. So if we look to academia-industry collaboration projects, in which quadrant do you think the innovation projects are? So maybe we can start with the bottom, so the not urgent. So if it's not important, it's not urgent, skip it, don't do it. If it's not important, but it's urgent, let someone do it for you. Now we come to the important ones. So, if it's important and urgent, do you think companies should enroll in collaboration with academia? Should they ask for European funds or national funds, or maybe not? It's going to take a long time. So you should do it yourself, right? Just do it. It's important, it's urgent, find the money and do it. But then there is another quadrant, is important, but not urgent. And that's the strategic ones, right? So that's the strategic way of doing, and I think today everybody agrees that innovation is very much important for all the companies' competitiveness. So that's the quadrant you are working in when applying for European funds and collaboration with academia. But then comes the second question, which is, how do I find a suitable call for my innovation? If you go to the EU funds portal, if you open the first door, you will find a map with all these funding programs. So how to navigate this? Well, pretty much, I was very familiar with Horizon Europe. Now at PNO, I got familiar with other programs, LIFE, Innovation Fund, Erasmus. For example, PNO is very proud to have helped 7 projects out of 17 that got the Innovation Fund this year. But that's also where companies like PNO help, is to find the right call for your innovation. So I will now focus on Horizon Europe for today. And here are 2 resources I want to share with you. So the first one, this is the time you are allowed to take your mobile phone or computer and tap it into and search for it, because the first one is our magazine. And a lot of I'm going to present is in our magazine, so you don't have to take photos or notes. And there we explain the step-by-step on how to prepare a proposal for Horizon Europe. And the second resource is Innovation Place. There you can log in and search all kinds of opportunities that are open. And now I'm going to pass a video for you to understand our context.
Are you an innovative entrepreneur? Or ambitious researcher looking for funds for your groundbreaking service, product or technology? With Horizon Europe, Europe's key research and innovation funding programme that runs from 2021 till 2027 with a €95.5 billion budget, you can now make a huge impact by contributing to solving global challenges. If you are a scientist performing excellent research that helps face future challenges, or if you want to tackle one of Europe's bigger challenges with your innovation, or if you are involved in innovational game changers which will help make the EU stronger and more competitive, then Horizon Europe has the power to help you. Horizon Europe can help you by funding your project, giving you access to knowledge and partners, creating a strong international position for your project, and offering you an opportunity to play a meaningful role by developing solutions that help solve major global challenges. Compared to the previous Horizon 2020 programme, the new Horizon Europe programme packs the power of open science, a new generation of European partnerships, and the European Innovation Council, while putting gender equality at the top of its list. Contact us today and get all the advice on how to make not only an impact with your innovation, but compete for European funding as well.
So I hope you got motivated. So one tool that helps us a lot to position the projects in the funding scheme is the technology readiness level. So these are the scale used by the European Commission. It actually came from a NASA scale, which divides the innovation between TRL 0, which is just an idea, till TRL 9, which is innovation ready to bring to the market. And so what I'm going to present next is connected to this, because some programs are more fundamental research, meaning till TRL 3, Then others are more applied research, TRL 5, and then others are really already very close to the market, achieving 7, 8 number for TRL. So this is one of the tools you have in P&O magazine, and there you can click in all these elements and see what is inside. And I just want to explain just what I said. So in Pillar 1, that's fundamental research. So European Research Council, for example, P&O developed a method to evaluate if researchers have a chance to get ERC grants. As you know, ERC grants are quite difficult to get, just for top researchers. And so universities sometimes do this pre-screening for their researchers. Also Marie Curie, with, for example, Philippa Tomé at our team, she was a Marie Curie grant holder, so she's happy to help with the applications. And then we go to Pillar 2. So in Pillar 2, we have 3 kinds of projects, which are the ones I'm going to present at the end with some examples, which are the ones is more research-driven and more innovation-driven. So here we are talking about from TRL 4 till more or less, 7, maximum 7. And there we have all these kind of clusters that you see there. And together with these clusters that we now have health, culture, creativity, and inclusive society, civil society for civil security for society, digital industry and space, climate, energy and mobility, and food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. And we are doing proposals in all these clusters. And on top of this, the Commission also defines some missions which are more focused inside this pillar. And then we go to Pillar 3. And Pillar 3 is really innovation ready, almost ready to go to the market. This is 7, 8 TRL. And there we have the European Innovation Council, EIC, with 3 different types of grants, ERC Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator. And EIC is the instrument of the Commission for research-driven entrepreneurship. So that's for all of you guys here at Castelo Branco that have your research in the lab and want to bring it to the market. That's the place to put it. Then we have the European Innovation Ecosystems, and finally the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, EIT. So I have worked a couple of years on this, and this is present in Portugal in several areas. So in Portugal we have EIT. We have EIT manufacturing, food, raw materials, health, and a couple more. So just look for them, for the EIT hubs, and they can help you also with the fundings and get into the communities. And then there is a particular point that I want to stress here, which is the bottom. So as you see in the button, is funds for widening participation and spreading excellence. What is that? So these are specific programs for widening countries. And guess what? Portugal is a widening country. So these, together with a couple of other widening countries, these twinning projects help twin Portuguese institutions with foreign or more, let's say, excellence, as it says in the title, institutions to spread knowledge and to get to another level of excellence. So now we come to the roadmap to a successful Horizon European proposal. And this is how we organize our method to get to European proposal. So phase 1. So usually we start 9 to 1 year in advance. and always 4 to 6 years before the deadline, 6 months before the deadline. So we started pretty soon. And there is a couple of reasons for that. Most of them is that ideas have to mature, right? And so in phase 1 is pretty much to identify the opportunity. Where is the problem? And problems can come both from industry and academia. Both can propose a problem, and this is an iteration process. So maybe we have to take out our arrogance sometimes to say, okay, these academics, okay, these guys from the industry, and iterate the ideas to get to the problem. Then organizing brainstorming sessions to identify the right partners. And that's the main reason why we start so soon, is because you have to have time to identify the right partners for the project. Kick off with the partners, and we end this phase, we set up for work plan. Then on phase 2, it's the conceptualize R&D plan. So we start with developing the first concept. And this takes time, going on iteration again, to have the concept ready to present, say what is the objective, where we want to go. Then the phase 3 is where we start writing the proposal. And there, I hope you can read the caution there. It says common pitfalls that stop European project. And the first one is can't find the right partners. And the second one is starting too late. So this is the important message here. And the phase 4, it's reviewing the proposal for submission, helping maturing it, have the final thoughts, and then decide when to submit. You don't have to wait till the last day. So the call is open way before that. And then I just want to give you some more tips on the impact. So I think impact is why we do it, right? We are in this business, in the research, in developing innovation. It's for impact, right? It's to create better world, leave a better world for our children. And the impact is where the many of the applications fail, because they cannot show what is the impact of innovation. And it can be a great project, a great idea. If you cannot show how it's going to be impact, it's not going to go through. So here are some tips. So the first tip is to check the Horizon Europe strategic plan, the key strategic orientations, and to write your impact, organizing with the key orientations, strategic orientations. Then check the org program. See that the outcomes of the org program is actually what you have to put in the impact. And then use a checklist. Okay, I'm not going to bother you more with these details. You can find all of these in the magazines. And of course, I hope we can work together on this in the future. So now I have for you some examples of European projects. So examples of European projects where P&O has been partner of the projects. So the first one is RIA, so trying to start with the terminology of the European Commission. And RIA is a research and innovation action, meaning TRL till 5. And here you can see is in the health sector. So BRAVE 3 is 3D printing to restore a damaged heart. So that's quite a long shot, as we can usually say. So it's a project started in 2020 and still has some years to go, and that's the institutions we are working with in this project. Then I have here another example, which is an innovation action. So TRL till 7. And this is Open Innovation Testbed for Nano-Enabled Membrane. So very different scope, very different sector. But I wanted to stress out this project to talk with you about cascade funding. So if you have never worked in any European project, have never done a proposal, never involved in a proposal, don't know how to start, one good place to start is with cascade funding. And what is that? Cascade funding is usually open calls, smaller, inside bigger projects, where you can apply with a smaller team. And you have the support of all the partners in the consortium. For example, if you are working in membranes, if your research is about membranes, this project is opening an open call very soon in October. And you can set up, you can get into contact with us, get a company, apply, and this is much easier to get and to get started with the collaboration. The fourth example is another innovation action. It's called Pro Bono, and it's all about energy efficiency in cities and buildings and regions. And in this time, I have not put the logos of the partners because it has 47 partners. So that's quite a huge project. But Sonai is one of the partners, one of the 47. So, and they participate in this project with their building, with their campus. I think we can say campus, because I have a campus in Maia near Porto, where many of the companies and also part of the industry and the MC operations are installed. And so this is a huge campus, and they are using this as a test bed to create these green neighborhoods. Okay, and then there's a third type of projects that I wanted to introduce to you, which are the CSAs. These are coordination and support actions. So no TRL here, okay? No product being developed, but it's an action which it says is to coordinate, and usually is more in strategic nature and also policy driven, meaning that wants to create some actions for policy. And that was the case of NextNet, so Next Generation Technologies for the Network Europe. So as you have seen, all other three projects are in place at the moment. This one has ended in 2019, but it was how I met P&O. As you can see there, INESCTEC, I was working at INESCTEC, and I was working side by side with P&O in this project. Okay, so I'm sure you have a lot of questions and are very much motivated to start working on European projects. So I will gladly take your comments, suggestions, and questions. Thank you. Yeah, just after Antonio's presentation.
Thank you very much for your very good presentation, Anna. I have a question that perhaps can be difficult, but not for you. As you know, I work at a RTO, and you work at an RTO at INESCTEC. And we also are examples of the interface between academia and industry, but in different roles with different challenges. In your opinion, what are the main differences from a tech company and that consultancy company like P&O and RTOs, and what are the points of touch of these two kinds of actors?
This remembers the research methods I used to apply. So when I started PhD, I started in industry, and of course I was a little bit aside, you know, I was not in a lab. And what I did was action research, which is a mixture of consultant, researcher, and the industry. And I think this triangle is kind of virtuous, you know, because at P&O we don't do research, right? So we foster, we help, we do two things mainly. So one is to help fund the research, and the second one is to help in the project with some of the tasks. First, exploitation. So with our network and market analysis services, we can very much help the companies with their exploitation strategies. And also with other services through our partners like dissemination, project management, etc. So we are not competing, we are just putting, again, collaboration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I have some problems. I am teacher, and I am also research, and I don't have time to do everything. I have a lot of ideas. In fact, I have some ideas that for me it's good, but I don't know if it was good or important for the other ones. And what is my first step after talk with you? Where can I have help? How can I have support to manage everything? Because it's difficult. We need a lot of partners. I can identify them, but the problem is always the time. Also, I work in the laboratory. I have a lot of problems also because we need equipments, very expensive equipments. I need to maintain this equipment. I need a lot of reagents. Always a lot of problems. Because of that, sometimes it's very difficult, and but I could be interested in these programs.
Yeah, we definitely have to talk. So that's mainly why this grant consultancy business, let's say, started, is to take some of the work from the researchers, because you have a lot of things to do. You cannot worry with European rules compliance and all the things you have to know how to prepare the proposal, you know. And so we work very closely with the coordinator. So usually our coordinator is kind of our mandate. And if a coordinator has a very good problem or idea and already very ideas of the consortia, then we help manage all the process to get ready for submission. And then during project execution, it's another step where you can also count on our help or of others, of course, in the consortia. Yes, up there.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I just would like to ask you, I know that through the evaluation process, the evaluation panel, we'll go through the identification of key shortcomings. Do you have a list of the most shortcomings we should avoid?
Yes, that's probably the thing, is that many of the things, the drawbacks or the shortcomings, don't come in the evaluation report. The evaluation report is very concise, but is where the experience helps to spot where.
Because I know there are key shortcomings that
exactly.
the evaluation panel is going to target, and many times we introduce those shortcomings because we don't have any idea about how to avoid them.
Exactly, and that's why many times researchers or coordinators of the proposals come to us just for review services.
Okay, so you have that service.
Exactly,
you can
yes.
help us avoiding
Yes,
Okay.
the shortcomings,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So I see Rodrigo coming is probably... Any more questions? So I thank you very much. I'll be around in the coffee break, happy to talk to you and happy to come more often to Castelo Branco. Thank you.
Thank you, Ana, for your insights and presence. We now call to the stage António Batista from INEGI. António Batista is project manager and senior researcher in the Product and Systems Development Unit at INEGI, Institute of Mechanical Engineering and Industrial Management. He has a degree in mechanical engineering and a PhD in production technology in the area of computational mechanics at FCT, University of Coimbra. After his PhD, he worked at Technological Center Sodexia in the automotive industry sector on international engineering projects. He was also responsible for continuous improvement projects. You may begin. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. It is a great pleasure to be here at the IPCB on this international conference of ICOPEV. I first must thank to Professor Luís Farinha for this invitation, that is the chair of this conference and also vice president of IPCB. Also to thank also to the chair, Professora Madalena Araújo, and also to Professora Constança Rigueiro. So, and also to compliment all the people on this audience and for the ones that are seeing us along the streaming. So, my presentation will focus on production sustainability and also in this intersection on project innovation. So, in what level, in what degree can these two big aspects, these two big topics can support circular economy paradigm? So, this is the scope of the presentation. I will start for a brief institutional context from my background and where I do my work and my research. Then also a big topic is for us to get more awareness of the challenges that we all face, we as individuals, but we as collective entities with nations, countries, and also regions in our planet. Then I will address the topic of project innovation with some examples, with some innovative methods that we developed at INEGI. Then methods regarding sustainability and circularity assessment. And then I will finalize with some final remarks. So, beginning with the institutional context. INEGI is where I work in the past 11 years. Previous to INEGI, I went to industry, to Sodexia Group at the Technical Center in Maia. It was very important for me, this experience, this industrial experience on the pressure, on the efficiency, on the aim to go more, to do better, to be more efficient. But at INEGI, so a different role arises. We are structured in these three main pillars where we address in a very customized, very client-focused project definition from research and development, innovation and technology transfer, and also the services component that can be either lab-based, but also consultancy-based, and finally also in advanced training. So, as some numbers, we, in the last year, so 2021, our turnover was a little above 12 million. We have more than 110 projects in continuous, and other numbers that show our performance in terms of the institute. Of course, a very important aspect are not just the financial numbers, of course, are our workforce, our people. And we are growing steadily, and more than that, we have more contracts, so more permanent staff. That is very important and for us a proud path at the Institute. Regarding our location, so we were born in '86 in Porto, at a time in the premises of the Faculty of Engineering of the University of Porto in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. But a lot of things happened since then. So right now, we are actually expanding our facilities. We are going more south in Portugal, namely quite here, not too far away from Castelo Branco, in Évora, with INEGI Alentejo, that has two main components and topics, aeronautics and energy. And we have also some presence either in Brazil and in Turkey regarding renewable energy consultancy. The nature of the Institute. We are a research and technology organization, so an RTO in the nomenclature of European projects and organizations. So, of course, we are an interface institution regarding to close up the gap between academia and industry. We were born, our DNA is born on industry, but as we will see in some slides ahead, we have other sectors of activity. As I was mentioned, we are structured on these three main pillars and a big set of competences that I will not, of course, talk about of all, but I can highlight some of which, of course, some related to system development, materials development and application, metalworking, energy, renewable energy integration, could be wind, solar, and more recently also the hydrogen vector, and in products and systems development, where I work, and also where methodologies, novel concepts arises. So I show, sorry that there is some misformattation, but here I show our main laboratories, engineering tools that we use. We develop also our own tools, original tools, and experimental factories. And to conclude this part, the main sectors that we address. As well as I mentioned already, industry is our backbone from our born, but other sectors were, along the years, mapped into the institution areas and projects like capital goods, like aeronautics, space and defense, automotive and transports, a big area of our focus also, infrastructures. Also, as I mentioned, the energy. We always, or almost always mention, for instance, in wind energy, the Institute has a long work on wind power potential assessment. Since the early 90s, since 91, we were involved in accessing the wind energy potential along Portugal. And 80% of those projects that right now are producing renewable energy were assessed involving INEGI. And other two more emergent sectors at the Institute, the sea economy and the health and sports, namely with biomechanics. I should not pass my presentation without mentioning LAETA. LAETA is the Associated Laboratory for Energy, Transports and Aerospace, and it has a strong bond with INEGI. It is our side, our presence, focus on science. LAETA was created in 2006, and besides INEGI, has three other partners. So, IDMEC in the TU Lisbon, Institute University of Lisbon, of course, ADAI at the University of Coimbra, and Aerorog at the University of Beira Interior. Right now, INEGI is on the presidency of LAETA with Professor Pedro Camanho. These are the main figures of LAETA dated to 2020. And I here present also other indicators and characteristics of LAETA. For instance, we are renowned as an excellent grade rated by FCT for the last evaluation period, and we integrate either non-faculty investigation researchers as permanent contracts, foreign PhD holders, and also foreign, circa 20% foreign PhD students. We have also other partnerships for different domains. Such as University of Évora for energy, Inestec, also in the area of smart grids, in the electrical vehicle laboratory, and also IPLeiria, PT Space, BIL C3, and also University of Coimbra for digital infrastructures. Passing to the challenges that we all face. And right now, things will be more severe, I would say, because I will focus on very difficult challenges that we, as we all know, face, but presenting some numbers that are cold, I would say are cold to the reality, but are creating this enormous problem regarding climate change and our planet warming. So, this is quite impactful. Our human footprint all over the last 250 years. And we can see, of course, the world population. Many times this is an indicator, a so-called KPI that is forgotten to mention about the problem. Of course, the CO2 emissions, the fresh water use. This 2022 is already marked with a big drop and severe lack of water, stress water, and the use of fertilizers, for instance, marine fish capture, etc. And this also states the degree of the resources that we are demanding to our planet. For instance, in the United States, in 1 year, they consume 5 times more than it was supposed to be, or to be enough in terms of sustainability of resource capture in the planet. The UK, 2.8 times. Portugal is not in this picture, but I can say that is more than 2 times. Okay, and we are a very small country, as you all know, China, India, etc. And we know that our development along at least 2, 3, 4 centuries are based on linear economy. And we as engineers know that if we have a linear economy, a steady growth in a finite system, this will not work. So, and in this graph, I show, for instance, this is very recent. This appears last week at the Total Energies Investor Day. And we see also the growth on different aspects, not just CO2, but the natural gas extraction resources, and also the GDP. And we see even the effect of the pandemics. And the fast rebound that we see as a good example is the inflection that we face. Okay? And also, just 2 more slides, but very important one regarding this, are the greenhouse emissions. Of course, we all know the Paris 2015 agreement to keep the warming, the temperature rising below 1.5 degrees. But unfortunately, we also know that we are not in the right pace. For instance, in Portugal, our region, we are around, at this time, in 1.1, 1.2 plus degrees Celsius. And in this work, we see scenarios for the global warming paths. Okay, applying strong restrictions or actions to mitigate climate change or not. But we are not in the right track. And here to this final slide, it is a very interesting one, very recent work that we see the cascade of impacts. Okay, if we don't do nothing and we keep business as usual. Okay, what happened in this system of consequences of extreme weather events? We are in a very water stress this 2022, and we keep right now in September. At the end of September, we are still in water stress in Portugal and the other areas in the globe. So we really need to take the conscience about the effects, okay, and then to act. And okay, let's think about it. So we need to change. That is the thing. And how can we change? And there are overall programs that we all know. For instance, a very important work on the foundation, Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Okay, the butterfly diagram that we all know is very powerful. But we should, more than powerful, we should implement this kind of strategies. This is not easy. Also, the United Nations 2030 agenda regarding the Sustainable Development Goals. So, and to finalize this context, in our Europe, in our European Union, with the Green Deal, I show here, so for instance, some parts of the program, some of which are very recent. So, for instance, the green and digital transition, the eco-design, the energy, labeling and efficiency, and more recently, as we all know about this severe stress that we face, the Repower EU, to speed up the energy transition. And one thing that is very, very important, and we should, each one of us, to think more, the one thing that is appearing, that is the right to repair. Could be a smartphone, could be our car, it's our white good for the laundry machine, etc., etc. So, taking this into account, I will explain and present some methodologies, some ideas that were born at INEGI and mature along 10 years time. The first one that I will present in the context of project innovation is the Lean DFX. Lean DFX was created to support product development in the sense of holistic integration of disciplines. And we all know, for instance, and heard about design for reliability, design for manufacturing, design for assembly, design for excellence. And we integrate this in a very methodologic and systematic way. We structured this methodology in 4 main pillars. The first of one is to think in modular design, functional design. The second is to, okay, our product. What are the disciplines that requires along the life cycle? The X domains. And attached to X domains, the product KPIs. We put also visual management elements with lean thinking behind. And finally, we integrate this in a descriptive way with scorecards that we design. So the first pillar we know as engineers, and we should more and more adopt this systematic approach of modular design and functional design. Then the domains, so the disciplines, and one thing that after these 7 years after this creation, we know from our experience that typically companies or small companies do not structure so well the development, but this is really required. Otherwise, we will forget something and the project will take more time, more cost, and one important thing is one thing that we at the design stage would not take to account or took to account, of course, will be appearing with effect, with costs at the use phase, with the reliability, with more maintenance costs, or in terms of the planet with impacts to the nature and to the planet. These are examples of KPIs and of different domains. To be more easy to the user to interpret the results, we use simple colors, okay, the synoptic of efficiency or effectiveness. And then we go straight until the end with these two aspects of product development. The effectiveness, that is to aim the targets, the specification, but then to not lose the track to efficiency, or in other words, the inefficiency of the design, to put more resources, more energy, more oil, more etc. So actually we are tracking over design. And this is the type of scorecards that we achieve applying the methodology of LeanDFX. This resembles to be quite simple, but it hides a lot of complexity because this is just one dimension, in this case, optimization, of structural optimization, where we see for a given level of different models, what are the ones that are passing the thresholds for the effectiveness, and for the ones that have passed the thresholds, what is the degree of over design, degree of efficiency. But we have to put this for all the domains and for all the levels of our product. So this is really a thing that tries to decomplicate the complexity of our products. We apply this firstly at the DIRA project, tomada, where an innovative bending machine was produced, and after we apply also in a gripper with JPM, and more recently with a Caetano bus structure for the new city bus. Besides this, we have the chance, really interesting chance, to work in a project, a Clean Sky 2 project with Airbus, Defence and Space, where the goal was to create a methodology that could assess the eco-efficiency of a given assembly design. Because as we know, in the aeronautics, a big task is to assemble all the components that are produced for the partners involved. So we integrate a very concise framework that we use LeanDFX and apply other tools to measure efficiency and eco-efficiency. At the end, we applied the methodology, we imbibed into CATIA software with Airbus partners and in PLM systems. I have not too much time to present this methodology, the following methodologies, but I think they are relevant to mention because they were born in a so-kind strategy implementation of translational research, as I used to call it. More recently, with Professor Torres Marques and my colleague Susana Souza, we applied the concept of LeanDFX to material world. And we were lucky enough to write a chapter for the encyclopedia of Elsevier of composite materials. And the idea is can we support material design in the logic of life cycle, either to measure the effectiveness of the set of characteristics of materials, but also to measure in the material life cycle that is integrated to products and until the end of the product life cycle. And more recently, a concept regarding services. Can we apply the same logic of design for X in services? That was the research question. This is a joint work with the FEOP, with Professor Vera Miguel. And of course, this is quite complex. Services are quite tricky. It was a good challenge. We create a very complete framework, and of course, this will be interact in the future with product and services, because that is already happening, and we need to bind and to measure these two big worlds. To conclude, in terms of methodologies, I pass to the topics more regarding production economics. That is a key topic in ICOPEV. So, and one method that opened our vision to this methodology was MSM. MSM stands for multi-layer stream mapping. That was an idea that me and one colleague of mine Emanuel Lourenço, in his master thesis, developed. And the challenge was, can we create something that measures efficiency in a systematic way with lean principles and to show not just the efficiency level of the system, but the waste that is generated. It was a long work, and we happily, at the end of the European project, got the evaluation for the innovation radar for the tool. More recently, we are applying the tool to an EIT project with startups. But I will explain very briefly the method. The method starts with value stream mapping, very well known for lean thinking, lean manufacturing, and we structure also in 4 pillars. We like a lot to structure the methodologies, the descriptive methods, in not too much pillars. And the first one is, of course, to follow the steps of VSM, value stream mapping. The second one is the KPIs that govern a given system. And the new thing that we systematically apply are efficiency ratios, applied visual management aspects, and then to integrate. It is quite interesting to present MSM after Lean DFX, because Lean DFX was actually a son of MSM, as we will see, because we create this kind of original scorecards, focus on efficiency at the first time. One thing that I should also mention, and we were not aiming to that, is to map costs and to disaggregate value-added costs from non-value-added costs. By applying this systematically to separate for each KPI what is the value-added component, so the target that the company wants for energy efficiency, energy consumption for a production of a given part, or the material, or the machine time, etc. We can also, if that is possible, to monetize the cost rates of each aspect to integrate all this, and so to achieve this kind of the right part of the slide diagram. So in a given production, for a given product, for a given timeline, what does the cost or the investment that I put, and what is the valuable part, and what is the wasteful part. And this, of course, is all very, very important for continuous improvement projects, but to see also the return of investment. These are the types of projects and partners that we, along these 10 years, work with a project that, for instance, Ana Barros know very well, be in CPPS, where the first time that we implement the MSM tool, the software module, it was not in Portugal, actually. It was in Austria, in GWC Cosmetics, and it was really a challenge. And afterwards, in projects such as Maestri, such as also Airbus Defence and Space, and EIB. And we are running with a project that is Green MEA with startups. And the challenge was, can we adapt this method to aim more on sustainable development goals? That is one challenge. And the second one is, can we also integrate the triple bottom line approach that is very well known to access economics, environmental, and social? So we create as far as simplified as we can, because startups, of course, do not rely with too much data. With interviews, it is a very ambitious project with 30 startups involved, and we are already getting some results. And these are the kind of results that we are getting, and we see different products, for instance, for one startup, and the KPIs regarding economics, environmental, and social. And we also are using more and more quadrants approach to be more visual, to see and to map and to benchmark the efficiency levels. To finalize, I will present a framework that we developed in the past 3 years. We name it Symbiosports, and actually is 4 years. That is a cooperation between INEGI and University of Cambridge, the IFM, namely with Professor Steve Evans, that is the head of Sustainability Center at IFM. And we have also the collaboration of the FEUP with Professor Alcibiades Guedes on the logistics and supply chain part. Symbiosports is a complex method, but I will try to simplify as far as I can. The aim is to map the potential of industrial symbiosis. is really challenging topic, and that's why we try to divide in two parts. The first part is a more qualitative, okay, more simplified assessment, where we map donors, where there are excess of where there are present residues, products, etc., and where are the possible receivers, the receptors that can take a given residue, can be metal, could be water, whatever, and to take and valorize in other products. And then we also divide these resources in different layers, because of course they are not all from the same nature. One thing is material, another thing is energy, another thing is logistics capability. And finally, we validate the approach in a detailed method that we call a triple win approach. Starting from the beginning. The beginning was also with Emmanuel Lorenz. We have some ideas where we brainstorm a lot and we think about the following. Okay, a donor, I have a residue of a given process. Typically, this is associated to an inefficiency, okay? A hotspot, a bad thing. So, and we realize, okay, if I have an efficiency, I have a donor of a residue, okay? If there is a donor, should be a receptor. If it is a hotspot, should be a cold spot. And from this basis, we create, together at that time, with the partners from University of Cambridge, this method. We start, the symbiosis spots started there, and we start to put rules to map, in the sense of qualitative approach, what is a hotspot, a strong hotspot that has a lot of residue, a lot of subproduct available, good quality, and ready to use, for instance, or a medium degree or a low degree of hotspot. And we apply the same in the opposite way as the point of view of receptor. A strong cold spot is something that is more tolerant to the residue. But a very weak cold spot is very, very strict. I have a process that for a given product, but is very strict in the quality of the material. So, of course, I cannot take a given material, but with it's not so pure or mixed with other materials. That is the logic. Then we apply in different layers for materials, energy, and logistics. More on over the road, we analyze that this is not enough. Because industrial symbiosis typically that there is a middle agent that facilitates this interaction, this valorization between a donor and a receptor. And also we create also the same logic to the middle layer. And this is the formula. I'm sorry that is a bit unformatted, but I will explain. This is the main formula. And we apply on purpose a formula regarding many physical or chemical approaches and equations to map phenomena. So we apply symbiosis potential is equal to a flow factor, that middle layer, that applies to a potential. And the potential is the donor, okay, minus the receptor. And this is the scale. The best donor has a 5. The worst or the weakest has a 1. For the cold, the receptor, we have the -5, and for the worst, -1, and we apply a flow factor, 5 to best and 1 to worst. We also normalize this, and in this logic, of course, the flow factor will act as either accelerator or attenuator for the potential. We create this kind of matrices regarding the different flows, the different options that we have for a given residue to go to company A, company B, company C for a valorization. Again, the receptor's point of view and the flow factor. After that, we do a short list of potentials. And this is very tricky, and on purpose we apply this so-called triple win approach. And why is that? Because we know that many opportunities of industrial symbiosis fail with different problems. Legal problems, the distance is too far, so the cost will be too far. There is a lack of confidence between the agents, the donors and the receptors. And so we should not go to a project evaluation of a symbiotic approach without detail. And that is the logic of triple win. The triple win stands for a given symbiotic exchange should be sustainable if the donor gains something, the receptor gains something, of course. It should not be if the donor gains and the receptor loses, of course. This will take 1 month, 6 months, and then it goes. So, donor should win, the receptor should win, but we should not forget a third agent, and the agent is planet. It stands for environmental impact. That is the triple win. And we should apply this in the logic as ICOPEV applies project evaluation, starting from economics. To go and to be concise, to be detailed, project finance, involve the stakeholders, involve the CFOs, involve the CEOs. Because without good data, without confidence, this will not work. If the business case is okay, then we should check the environmental assessment with detailed life cycle assessment. If it is okay, planet is okay, so we can go. That is the logic that we applied in this stage-by-stage application. This is a very fast example that we conclude a project, co-serial value, with Silas Leixões and German Moagem. The focus was to valorize excess materials and subproducts from the heat from cereals. On the left, you see the interaction and the mapping of where are the donors, the agents, the receptors, and the facilitators. And what we realized by the application of symbiosis is typically the industrial symbiosis is always more complex at first time we thought that could be. And we realize and we apply a so-called linearization of the flows to see it and to check the quantities if all of that is working for the donor, for the receptor, for the facilitator. And at the end we validate, of course, with either project finance. Of course, I'm not showing here the data because it is confidential, but we involve on purpose the CFOs, CEOs, and it was not the RTOs that made the assessment. They should be their approach to project finance, their criteria, their goals, their targets, their margins. And that was the thing that we did, and it was validated for this use case. And then INEGI provided the LCA, environmental assessment, for a given current product and the new product that is being done with this valorization. To conclude, we know that we face unprecedented world challenges. A very high risk. It is a risk that is not just for the planet. The agent that is in risk is humankind. Because we hope that will be many million years from now, if we as humans disappear, the planet will regenerate by itself. So we are in trouble, and we should think about that. Because, of course, we already are facing problems like security and massive disruption on the planet biosphere equilibrium. And we know, namely in the last 2 years, other problems that we are facing. Geopolitical conflicts, commercial tensions, that they are creating another level of threats. Yeah? Nation security, energy supply risk that we face. Europe faces a huge energy supply risk, material shortages, and of course this is not helping to this decarbonization speed and the program. We know, for instance, in Germany, that they are burning coal as they were not in many decades. But we should be positive and work together namely in production systems, that we know that industries faces a lot of challenges to be more efficient, resilient, either with materials, energy, and also other operational management. Also regarding logistic operations and more resilience on supply chains. And finally, novel approach for operations management. That should include more and more sustainable assessment. And also, of course, this so-called twin transition. So to rely upon data and to speed up this transition. And I close with this slide that I use, namely on advanced formation at INEGI. it is something that we know that is like this, but we forgot many times. We did not inherit the earth. We are just passing by, and we should take the best and to take the most care of our planet, because it is borrowed to our children. So, and with this I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your excellent talk. I'm a bit curious, maybe I didn't understand in the beginning when you were presenting, starting the talk, if what is the role you have in INEGI? I mean, because you are talking about a big set of different projects you've been working, and I'm sure nobody can work on all these projects. You must have a specific task, a function.
Yes.
And if your degree, well, your preparation at the university level was what do you think? If that preparation was good for the kind of job you are doing? You also talked about your experience in Sodícia.
Yes.
What kind of work did you perform there to be able to join INEGI?
Yes.
On this? Thank you.
Thank you. A very good question. Namely, the first one is very. I was never asked that question. So I will start from the first question. My roles at INEGI are for senior researcher. So I conduct and manage and provide orientation, coaching on these areas of product sustainable design and systems. That's why also we can see on all these methods a lot of systems, a lot of production approaches. Also I do conduct project management roles. I should add that as I'm presenting LAETA, I'm principal research at LAETA, so the side of INEGI more focus on research. And regarding the tough question, how can I address these so different topics or challenges? And the straight answer is collaboration. As I was mentioned in some of, and these are just four frameworks. In the past 11 years, we developed around more than 10 methodologies. And the straight answer is collaboration. Of course, we are creative, of course. But it's not a one-man show, of course not. It's teams at INEGI, teams involving the Faculty of Engineering, as I was mentioned, that were our partners in Material Design 4X, in Service Design 4X. And we have the lucky, for instance, to work with top-notch experts in the world and with the University of Cambridge that support us in this very complex, as you saw, as regarding symbiotes. So, collaboration projects, collaboration teams, trust with partners is, if I can say, the secret to develop a given set of methods and frameworks. And also, I should say that for me, in the last 10 years, I realized that we work and developed original methodologies on life cycle engineering. And life cycle engineering, as we all know, takes product development, takes systems, takes production. That is our specialization, and with humility, my specialization. Regarding my background, it helps a lot. My PhD was on production technology at the University of Coimbra with Professor Luís Menezes and Professor Dulce Rodrigues on computation mechanics. And I did not present a line on computational mechanics, but the logics that I developed, the logics that I learn and create, they are here. They are here on the degree of disaggregation of these descriptive methods, for instance. And they are here on also this transformation of methods, of ideas, into pieces of software modules. And to conclude, of course, my experience on the 5 years that I was on Sodicia were very important on all of the topics regarding production systems, the logic of reducing energy, the logic that was there that I learned, for instance, lean thinking approaches, and I apply lean manufacturing. I don't know if I address the questions. Thank you.
So, thank you for your presentation, and it's very good. And I'd like to ask if you already apply these methods to infrastructures, bridge, or
No.
you or your team, because you are talking about several teams, and you show also that INEGI works on bridge.
Infrastructures.
So, infrastructure.
Yes.
So infrastructure we are calling bridge and tunnels, right?
Yes.
Okay. In that, you know if someone apply these methods to that kind of structures?
Very good question. Last week, I was surprised, very surprised, because LeanDFX and the methodology that I briefly described with Airbus, the multidimensional assembly design method, was applied in a system for a fusion plant. And I was surprised, and I talked with my partners, my colleagues, and this was a good outside-of-the-box application. MSM was already implemented in a PhD thesis in Italy, University of Turin. Integration with input-output methods. So it was one part of the approach of the thesis. The PhD thesis was with MSM for systems performance, and then input-output. Regarding infrastructure, and we, as far as I know, we did not apply it to that part, but of course it can be a challenging, another frontier to apply this kind of methods. And I will be happy if I can help to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio, for your presence and contributions. The international conference is coming to an end, and we will now take place the closing session. So we call to the stage the Vice President of the Polytechnic Institute of Castelo Branco and Chair of ICOPEV, Luís Farinha.
First of all, thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us your knowledge and reinforcing the networking between academia and, of course, the companies. So I think that meetings are very important to discuss the future of our regions, of our countries and our companies. If you don't mind, I will proceed in Portuguese. Gostaria de dizer que tivemos, ao longo destes 2 dias de trabalho muito intensos, a presença de académicos, de gestores, de empresários e de pessoas ligadas também à decisão política, quer na atualidade, quer no passado. Tivemos a oportunidade de ter aqui a partilha de trabalho científico nas sessões paralelas que decorreram nas manhãs de ontem e na manhã de hoje também. Uma mesa redonda onde foi possível mostrar projetos colaborativos que envolvem várias instituições de ensino superior, neste caso politécnicas, com outros parceiros internacionais, mas tivemos também aqui a presença de economistas, engenheiros e cientistas a falarem no mesmo palco, no mesmo sítio, de ciência, de engenharia do futuro. Joaquim Oliveira Martins, que não está hoje conosco por uma impossibilidade muito grande, mas que prometeu voltar e lançou-me o desafio de vos voltar a convidar num futuro próximo para estarmos aqui reunidos novamente a discutir aquelas situações que ficaram hoje no ar e que não ficaram fechadas. Tivemos a oportunidade também, e um agradecimento também especial ao ISQ, não só por terem vindo falar dos projetos e abrir as portas também à interação com a academia, mas permitiram também que nós visitássemos as instalações do ISQ Labet, que muitas das pessoas aqui presentes provavelmente não conheciam, e fica também aqui a oportunidade colaborativa no futuro. Tivemos também presente online hoje José Alves, portanto, Dean da Faculdade de Business da Gestão da Universidade de Macau, e que, no fundo, eu olhava para a apresentação que foi feita e estava a imaginar contactos posteriores para termos um caminho futuro de investigação, porque é importante refletir aquilo que nos foi dito e pensar nas oportunidades que uma crise global que se avizinha pode trazer também para o desenvolvimento do nosso tecido empresarial e para as nossas regiões e para os nossos territórios de baixa densidade populacional. Posso-vos dizer ainda que também durante o dia de ontem eu próprio fui convidado a participar numa sessão que será promovida pela Associação Industrial Portuguesa, que visava exatamente estas temáticas. Tivemos também a presença do professor José Tribolé, como sempre, nos deixa entusiasmados com as suas palavras, que nos deixa a refletir no meio de alguns sorrisos que nos provoca. Tivemos ainda também o Morten Lund, da Universidade de Aalborg, que nos fala de business models e que, a partir de um modelo tão fácil como o Business Canvas Model, nos pode mostrar aqui novas oportunidades colaborativas e desenvolvimento de novos projetos no futuro. Depois tivemos Capgemini Engineering, que nos fala da inteligência artificial, que é hoje o denominador comum de tudo aquilo que nos rodeia, com exceção daquelas questões que o professor Tribolé dizem que estão lá fechadas, algures, debaixo de um monte qualquer, à prova de ataques de cibersegurança. Tivemos aqui Ana Barros, que superou claramente as expectativas que eu tinha relativamente à apresentação. Não lhe pedi nada disto, era muito menos, mas agora ficou também já a promessa de uma reunião a seguir e por isso estamos a despachar aqui o encerramento da sessão para termos mais oportunidades de continuarmos a trabalhar. E António Batista, claro, se alguém tinha confusão, se havia alguma confusão sobre o que era esta conferência, da parte da Universidade do Minho, claramente que não havia essa confusão, e um agradecimento muito especial à professora Madalena Araújo por permitir que nós realizássemos a conferência aqui este ano em Castelo Branco, mas Production Economics and Project Evaluation é isto mesmo, ficou aqui fechado nesta apresentação muito bem conseguida. E assim, mais uma vez agradecendo a todos vós, podem ficar descansados, que vos vou chatear a todos muito em breve, porque temos que trabalhar em conjunto, temos que fechar estes pontos e temos que operacionalizar aquilo que prometemos fazer. E já agora também, ontem surgiu uma nova oportunidade no meio desta conferência, ainda tivemos uma outra reunião antes do jantar e onde continuámos os trabalhos a explorar oportunidades colaborativas. Primeiro, dinâmicas cooperativas para conseguirmos frutos colaborativos. A todos, o nosso muito obrigado, mais uma vez, em nome do Sr. Presidente do Instituto Politécnico Castelo Branco. Obrigado a todos.
We now call the Secretary of State for Regional Development, Isabel Ferreira, that couldn't be here with us today, but sent a small video.
Muito boa tarde a todos. É com imenso gosto que participo nesta sessão e que tem também como objetivo potenciar a inovação dos ecossistemas regionais de inovação, através de uma forte interação entre a academia e a indústria nestes domínios da investigação, desenvolvimento tecnológico e inovação. E começo por felicitar a organização, nomeadamente o Comitê da Direção e a Comissão Organizadora desta ICOPEV, pela escolha da bonita e dinâmica cidade de Castelo Branco para palco da 5ª edição da conferência, pelo facto de dar continuidade a este evento, pela excelência do painel de oradores convidados e, sobretudo, pela importância e pertinência das temáticas abordadas no contexto atual, quer para Portugal, quer para a Europa e para o mundo, e por isso os parceiros estão também de parabéns pelo percurso que cada um individualmente tem desenvolvido em prol da criação de investigação e desenvolvimento e do fomento de ecossistemas de inovação, mas especialmente das parcerias desenvolvidas. Quero salientar que este evento conta com o apoio da Comissão de Coordenação e Desenvolvimento Regional do Centro e também com o apoio e envolvimento de uma rede de parceiros, desde a academia até à indústria, e por isso honra-me muito a vossa capacidade de organização e mobilização para esta iniciativa e que mostra o quanto a união dos diferentes atores pode fazer a diferença na estratégia de desenvolvimento regional e da coesão territorial. Só com o empenho de todos, com o melhor desempenho e com profissionalismo podemos almejar encontrar os melhores caminhos para os desafios que se colocam à economia nacional e mundial e que ainda a recuperar da pandemia sofre os efeitos da guerra, com impactos no crescimento económico e na subida da inflação. A par também com o trabalho desenvolvido pelo Governo, é de extrema importância que os agentes locais e regionais se unam e estabeleçam estratégias próprias em prol da dinamização socioeconómica dos seus territórios. Destaco as iniciativas como a de hoje, de divulgação e intercâmbio de informação de caráter científico e técnico nas áreas de economia da produção, de projetos de engenharia e gestão da inovação, do empreendedorismo, da tomada de decisão e das aplicações de inteligência de negócios entre investigadores, quadros técnicos e empresários, num contexto de entreajuda e aperfeiçoamento, promovendo a transferência de boas práticas e novos conhecimentos para qualificar as empresas e a intervenção dos agentes de desenvolvimento locais, regionais e nacionais. Desde logo porque uma aposta clara na ciência é indispensável para que o país tenha uma estratégia coerente e de futuro. Uma estratégia que tem de passar cada vez mais pelo desenvolvimento económico ancorado no conhecimento que vem da academia, dos nossos centros de investigação, das nossas universidades e dos nossos politécnicos. Um conhecimento técnico e científico que em muitos casos já existe, tem dado provas da sua qualidade, é respeitado e reconhecido a nível internacional e precisa passar da academia para a economia real, chegando assim ao mercado através das empresas e da indústria e dando origem a produtos e serviços inovadores e competitivos à escala global. Todos sabemos que esta é a única fórmula para criar riqueza. Temos, por isso, de criar os incentivos para que esse caminho seja trilhado e exigir que esse objetivo norteie a nossa política pública. E ao criar condições para que o trabalho entre os cientistas e as empresas seja uma realidade, estamos também a multiplicar os bons exemplos que já temos. No âmbito do Portugal 2020, temos vindo a apoiar políticas de criação de emprego e de atração de investimento, de apoio à inovação, ao desenvolvimento das capacidades produtivas, de investigação e à dinamização da competitividade. E estes terão continuidade no próximo quadro, no Portugal 2030, já assinado com a Comissão Europeia. Nesta perspectiva, os programas operacionais regionais têm criado e continuarão a criar as medidas de apoio que visam o fomento de condições para a criação e transferência de conhecimento em ambientes de cocriação, orientada para a competitividade dos territórios através de incentivos à criação de emprego qualificado que possa desenvolver atividades de elevado valor nas empresas e outras organizações, apoios também ao investimento inovador, assim como à requisição e à aquisição de equipamentos, projetos de investigação científica, processos de inovação e modernização tecnológica que incentivam a contratação de recursos humanos qualificados, quer em entidades do sistema científico e tecnológico, quer em empresas. Este é o caminho que pretendemos continuar em prol do desenvolvimento integrado do país e da coesão territorial. E sabemos que cada euro atribuído à ciência tem um efeito multiplicador ilimitado. É esta a forma de trazer inovação aos nossos bens e serviços e a única maneira de conseguir a sua internacionalização. Indubitavelmente, a nossa estratégia enquanto país tem de garantir que se aumenta o investimento produtivo enquanto se faz uma clara aposta na internacionalização. Pretendemos, assim, tornar a economia mais capacitada por via da inovação, designadamente de base científica, tecnológica, organizativa e de gestão, em associação com a diversificação produtiva baseada no desenvolvimento de plataformas para a promoção de serviços inovadores de elevado valor acrescentado e orientada para a sua exportação. Gostaria também de fazer um breve balanço de que os programas operacionais regionais têm dedicado à ciência e às empresas que com ela trabalham, e falamos de quase 1.500 milhões de euros de fundos europeus, que representam um investimento global no território de quase 1.950 milhões de euros, e só para os territórios do interior já foram direcionados cerca de 196 milhões de euros de fundos, que representam investimentos de 251 milhões de euros. Destaco ainda a criação de 6.000 postos de trabalho ligados à ciência, cerca de 1.000 no interior, e a formação de 25.000 alunos, mais de 5.400 no interior. Pretendemos transformar os fundos europeus em matéria-prima para o desenvolvimento que faz sentido nos seus territórios, o designado desenvolvimento regional. Ao apoiar uma região, estaremos a apoiar o país no seu todo, e sem dúvida que o progresso e sucesso de cada empreendedor, de cada ecossistema empresarial regional, é o progresso dessa região, mas também o progresso do país. Com o Programa de Recuperação e Resiliência e com o PT 2030, dar-se-á continuidade ao apoio ao investimento empresarial produtivo, à qualificação e internacionalização das pequenas e médias empresas, ao empreendedorismo e à criação de emprego qualificado, incluindo também da nossa diáspora e da população imigrante, ao estímulo à produção nacional, à instalação e desenvolvimento de entidades que se dedicam à investigação e inovação, quer em termos de ciência, quer em termos de tecnologia. Pretende-se aumentar a competitividade e a coesão territorial. E é um facto que a realidade científica nas nossas regiões é hoje incomparavelmente melhor do que foi no passado. Temos melhores infraestruturas, recursos humanos cada vez mais qualificados e temos, sobretudo, a vontade de fazer mais e melhor. Continuaremos a trabalhar para captar cientistas e a comunidade empresarial para missões ambiciosas, com vontade de obter liderança internacional e assumir um papel de vanguarda. Estamos profundamente empenhados com o desenvolvimento integrado do país, atenuando a disparidade entre os níveis de desenvolvimento das diversas regiões, em particular das regiões mais desfavorecidas, fomentando a coesão e a competitividade territorial, garantindo um processo efetivo de convergência europeia até 2030, num contexto de promoção de transições ecológicas e digitais, com forte incidência territorial e de superação dos impactos da pandemia e da crise económica nos territórios mais afetados, em particular nos mais desfavorecidos. Este processo só pode ser feito com mais conhecimento, que garanta o reconhecimento deste processo de valorização como um bem público e como um meio de suporte à criação de mais e melhores empregos. Por isso, a nossa estratégia continuará a apostar na inovação, na investigação, articulada com o ensino para apoiar projetos que promovam o desenvolvimento local, porque assim estamos a fazer a aposta acertada no desenvolvimento do país. A realização de eventos como este mostram que continuamos a trabalhar juntos para tornar Portugal mais próspero, posicionando-o na senda da inovação, da formação e do conhecimento científico, não deixando ninguém para trás, ajudando a construir um tecido social cada vez mais coeso, uma economia mais competitiva e um país mais resiliente, verde e digital, mas também mais sustentável, mais preparado e inovador. Muito obrigada.
We hope you all enjoyed being with us. Thank you for your presence at ICOPEV International Conference on Production Economics and Project Evaluation. Enjoy a coffee with us outside before you go. Have a safe journey home and see you all soon.